The year is 1996. John Stainton takes footage that was filmed by a couple who were on their honeymoon and compiles them together and aired across Australia as the first episode of a brand new TV show, The Crocodile Hunter. Led by the legendary duo of Steve and Terri Irwin, The Crocodile Hunter ran for a total of 5 seasons between 96 and 04, still to this day being the second longest running program on the Discovery Channel's network, only surpassed by Mythbusters. On the 22nd of February 1962, Stephen Robert Irwin was born to Robert Bob Irwin and Lynette Lynn Hakainson in Victoria, Australia.
I love my parents just so much, mate. Like my mum, how'd you be? I was born on her birthday, and all she ever did was just love me and prop me up and get me back out in there. And my dad, just the legend of the universe. When I was the tiniest little kid, I'd look up at my dad and, he was like larger than life. He was just like this action hero. He was everything I wanted to be. And all I've done in my life is follow in his footsteps, mimic him and try to be him. And nowadays, I just try to make him proud, mate. Yeah, I love my parents like nothing else. It's just they are everything to me, absolutely everything.
Steve always had a hands-on experience aspect to wildlife. From the age of 8, he and his family moved to Queensland, where Bob and Lynn started their own small park called the Reptile Fauna Park. This led Steve to grow up around reptiles, receiving a 4-metre scrub python for his 6th birthday and wrestling his first croc at 9, while his father was teaching him how to handle reptiles. He ended up volunteering for Queensland's East Coast Crocodile Management Program, bagging over 100 crocodiles to be relocated and housed, somewhere safer from both crocs and the people of Queensland. Come 1991, Steve had taken full ownership of the Reptile Fauna Park. July 20th, 1964, Theresa Penelope Rains was born in Oregon, United States, under the roof of environmentalist parents Clarence and Judy Rains. She describes herself and her friends as free-range kids, riding bicycles around parks or going on hikes, keeping an eye out for wildlife. Her dad would bring home injured and orphaned animals that he would find along the highways of Oregon. She also recalls him teaching her the importance of life, regardless of whether it was human or not, setting her onto her path of wildlife conservation. By 1986, she had started a rehabilitation facility called Cougar Country that focused on revitalizing predator animals such as cougars and bobcats before releasing them back into the wild. In 1989, despite helping out with the family business and running Cougar Country, Terri began working at an emergency veterinary hospital as a veterinary technician. Despite all 3 jobs, she never fell out of love with caring for animals, owning at least 18 pets at the same time. In 1991, Terri took a tour down under to Australia and visited many different wildlife rehabilitation centres. Terri ended up inside the gates of the Reptile Fauna Park, where she found herself watching a man in his khaki button-up and shorts feeding the crocodile for a show. The man looked up at the crowd and locked eyes with her, and well, I'll let Steve and Terri tell the rest.
It was love at first sight. I know this sounds like it's coming out of some Mills and Boon love novel, but it's true. Love at first sight.
He said hello, and I think I said something really clever like hi.
And crikey, our love just went ballistic.
At that very moment, there was a photo taken, marking the exact moment they met. This photo belongs in the history books, although it probably already is. However, Terri does mention in many interviews that she still has the photo on her. Terri also mentions that she thought there was no one like this anywhere else in the world. He sounded like an environmental Tarzan, a larger-than-life superhero guy. They were inseparable, and that was for the better. 4 months later, they got engaged, and on June 4th of 1992, they were married in Terri's home city of Eugene, Oregon, United States. Skipping ahead and spoiling the plot for a little bit of context in their marriage, in an interview before the birth of their 2nd child, Terri says things like, "We believe in what we're doing, and we're actually in love and happily married." She also uses an analogy here, saying, "Oh honey, how was it at the police department today? You got all your fingers and toes today?" It would scare me. I'd have to become a police officer and work with him. I couldn't do it. Their love was real and pure, and would only get strong on their honeymoon, where they were filmed capturing crocodiles and other wildlife. 1998 rolls around and the 2 of them are living full-time in Australia, and the Reptile Fauna Park has been renamed to the more non-Aussie friendly and instantly recognisable name, Australia Zoo. In the middle of that year, on the 24th of July, Terri gave birth to their first child, Bindi Sue Irwin.
You know what? I never wanted to be a dad. I couldn't really give a rip. And now I am the proudest father. I can't dwell on her for too long or I start bawling my eyes out. When I go into the field, mate, I got a photo. I got a photo of me and my daughter, and I can just sit there and just start crying, just looking at her. Who would have thought someone as ugly as me could bring into the world something so beautiful, such a treasure?
Bindi's names actually come from a few different parts of Steve and Terri's lives. Bindi's first name has two origins, the first of which being Steve's favourite female crocodile at Australia Zoo. The second inspiration is taken from the Noongar language, a dialect spoken by some members of the Noongar mob, the Aboriginal or Indigenous Australian people that live in the southwest coast of Western Australia. Their word, Bindi, is the name for a girl, but it also translates to either little girl or butterfly. Her middle name, Sue, comes from the family's dog, Suey.
I've been asked about philosophies of fatherhood and, how to be a good parent and all that. And to tell you the truth, mate, all I do is just treat her exactly how I would want to be treated. She wants to have chocolate. Mum's not looking. Here, have the whole block.
At age 9, Bindi would go on to star in her own show, Bindi the Jungle Girl. She also won the 21st season of Dancing with the Stars, but is now starring in Crikey, It's the Irwins, with her mother Terri and her younger brother, Robert. December 1st, 2003, Robert Clarence Irwin is born. Robert's namesake actually comes from both of his grandfather's first names, Robert Irwin and Clarence Rains respectively. He previously co-hosted Wild But True and co-created Robert Irwin Dinosaur Hunter, but is currently an active television star working in Australia Zoo with Terri and a professional photographer.
Put him on Terri's chest and we're just stoked. And at that very moment, I saw the light. The whole time, you're here, you're like, I'm catching crocs, I'm saving wildlife, I'm doing this and I'm doing that, but when Bindi was born, I had the same sensation. Now with little Bob, same sensations. Like, this is why I was put here, because I could be dead tomorrow. So I need these blokes to come up as quick as they can. So this little bloke's gonna have to catch the crocs with Bindi.
The Crocodile Hunter aired from 1996 to 2004. Well, technically 2007 due to posthumous special releases though. The show featured mainly Steve, Terri and Wes Manning as the core cast of the show, seeing success in over 130 countries with 500 million people tuning in. His Aussie accent, signature khaki uniform, specifically the shorts, and his catchphrase "crikey" spread like wildfire throughout the globe. After the Crocodile Hunter finished in 2004, Steve moved on to work with Animal Planet, working on documentaries such as New Breed Vets, The Crocodile Hunter Diaries, and Croc Files. With a few other small roles in TV shows and movies like Dr. Dolittle 2, Steve continued to work with Terri at Australia Zoo, protecting wildlife, putting on great shows for the masses, and educating the world on how to handle dangers and live amongst the wonders of the wildlife.
What good is a fast car, a flash house and a gold-plated dunny to me? Absolutely no good at all. I've been put on this planet to protect wildlife and wilderness areas, which in essence is going to help humanity. I want to have the purest oceans. I want to be able to drink water straight out of that creek. I want to stop the ozone layer. I want to save the world. And money's great. I can't get enough money. And you know what I'm going to do with it? I'm going to buy wilderness areas with it. Every single cent I get goes straight into conservation. And guess what, Charles? I don't give a rip whose money it is, mate. I'll use it and I'll spend it on buying land.
On the 4th of September 2006, Steve and his crew were working on a documentary called Ocean's Deadliest. Steve and his cameraman Justin Lyons found a stingray after looking for something to film for Bindi the Jungle Girl. This short-tail ray was extremely large, having a wingspan of approximately 8 feet, so the two of them knew they had both just struck gold. They spoke about what they wanted to film in the water that only reached up to about chest height for a few moments before they dove in and started filming for a few minutes. One important thing to know is that stingrays are known to be quite peaceful creatures and will simply just swim away if they feel threatened by another animal. The two of them both stood up out of the water and decided they wanted to film one last shot of Steve approaching it from behind, causing the ray to swim away into the deeper waters. In a freak split second, the ray propped up and struck at a speed that was near hundreds of strikes a second. Justin believed that Steve's shadow may have confused the ray, making it believe it was a tiger shark, their natural predator who had come to feed on it, causing it to defend itself. Justin pans the camera to follow the rays that swam away, panning back to Steve in a pool of blood.
It was seconds, but it felt like forever because time really did slow down for me there. And again, contrary to what I'd read in the papers and everything I heard at the time, which was just incorrect, the stingray barb was a blade about a foot extending out of the middle part of its tail. So it's not at the tip of the tail, it's about in the middle. It's a bit like a fingernail. And the other half is embedded in the tail of the stingray. It didn't come out. Steve didn't pull it out. It's a jagged, sharp barb. And it went through his chest like a hot knife through butter.
Steve believed that it had punctured his lung, but by the time they had got him back onto the inflatable to get back to the rest of the crew, they realised he had a 2-inch wide gash over his heart. Justin also recalls that.
I mean, even if we'd been able to get him into an emergency ward at that moment, we probably wouldn't have been able to save him because the damage to his heart was massive.
Despite all their efforts to put pressure on the wound and get him to hang on just a little bit longer, Steve had looked up to Justin calmly, simply saying, "I'm dying," before he passed away shortly after. Within a matter of minutes, Steve had gone from swimming in the waters amongst wildlife to lying lifeless. The crew performed CPR on Steve for over an hour, but when the paramedics arrived, they pronounced him dead within 10 seconds of seeing him. It is also believed that Steve's death was the only ever death via stingray caught on film. However, out of respect for Irwin, his family, and the wildlife he swore to look after, all footage was destroyed.
I'll get bitten occasionally, you know, every now and again, but it's never the animal's fault, it's always my fault. I know what I'm going up against when I go in, and if I take a hit, it's my fault. Like on Jay Leno last night, that alligator hit me, that's not his fault. I feel sorry for Bubba.
Everyone thought that the legendary Steve Irwin would live forever. He had faced what felt like every dangerous animal on the face of the planet, and everyone agreed that if one of them got him, it would have to be a freak accident. And unfortunately, we were right. A private funeral took place on the 9th of September 2006, where he was buried in a private cemetery at Australia Zoo the same day. Bindi, Robert, and Terri have continued to look after Australia Zoo even to this day. Every year on November 15th, Australia celebrates Steve Irwin Day, the date chosen due to one of his favourite animals' birthdays, a tortoise in the Galapagos Islands. In a similar vein, there are two species of animals that have been named after him, the first one being found in 1997 called Irwin's turtle. The second animal was a land snail discovered in 2009 called the Crikey Steve Irwini. In 2007, Irwin was inducted into the Logie Hall of Fame, as well as multiple different governments and places continuing the tradition of naming new species after Steve. In 2022, Queen Elizabeth II passed away, leading many Australians to voice their want for Steve Irwin to appear in our country's currency instead of King Charles III. Even still to this day, Steve's mannerisms, likeness, battle for wildlife, and inspirations are still beamed across Australia, with most of us in agreement that he is a national treasure that was gone far too soon. For me personally, I remember seeing Steve for the first time when I was maybe 2 or 3, watching the Wheelie Safari. I remember singing along to Australia Zoo and dancing along with We Are the Crocodile Band, like I was in the movie. A lot of my friends and family are afraid of the creepy crawlies and snakes we've got here down under, but I think the reason I don't fear them, other than the little devil that is the plover, was that I grew up seeing Steve wrestle crocodiles, carry snakes, feeding kangaroos, and playing with spiders. I've always kind of seen them as friends, and while I may kill the odd spider or cockroach, I really do try to capture them and release as many bugs outside as I can. If I see a snake, I will never, and have never, call the local wildlife control because I know that it's going to kill him or move him somewhere more dangerous for the animal. I think what Steve taught us is that we are all equal. Every fly, croc, roo, koala, snake, person, whale, and ray have a right to live. Yeah, he may feed a rabbit to a croc, but that's just the way of life. And letting those animals live out their lives and then letting them find their way back into the earth again, it's just how it's meant to be. And I think Steve knew this.
Is there anything in this world that would want to make me give away what I'm doing now? Yes, there is. When my children can take the football that I call wildlife conservation and run it up. When they're ready to run up our mission, I will gladly step aside. And I guarantee you it'll be the proudest moment of my life. And my job will be done. Then and only then will I know that I have achieved my ultimate goal. To be able to stand aside and let them run up my mission.
Well, Steve, you've been an inspiration to not just Australia, not just the whole world, but the only thing you might care for more than wildlife: your family.